welcome to another edition of Look Up John's Nose. We're actually going to be doing a Country Roads Take Me Home. I'm out doing some driving, giving a little bit of a vlog. We just got done doing the intro to a haunted history tale in Harper's Tavern, Pennsylvania, right here in Lebanon County. And so we're going to be going through Greenpoint. We're going to be checking out some fall foliage, going up into Schuylkill County. I'm not quite sure yet what I all want to try to do, but we're going to check some different stuff out and see what we will see, and I'm going to give you a little bit of update as well with this, just because I wanted to give you the update. I was in the hospital again. This was sort of more of a nip it in the bud before it becomes an issue. So I had gotten cellulitis in the left foot again because I had this new wound that opened, which is a pressure wound. This one's a little more dangerous, is a little more aggressive infection-wise because of its location. When they restructured the left foot, they took the far outside bone and sort of moved it out a little bit to just give me, I guess, a little bit more width to the foot. Sort of gives you a little bit better balance because you're missing the toes and that type of stuff in the front part of the foot. But anyways, that wound had happened right underneath that bone where it was cut off. When they did the transmetatarsals, they cut off about little less than halfway down the foot. But anyways, it's in a really bad spot. And so anyways, with visiting the doctor, I got out on Monday. Today's Thursday. And when I visited with the doctor in a follow-up on Tuesday, he preferred that I would not work the rest of the week. And then starting next week is going to be very basic, sitting on my bum and just being smart, not being on my feet, because the idea behind this is to try to keep off the foot as much as possible, keep it up as much as possible. I'm just sort of getting out of the house so I don't go nuts type of thing for a little bit of a drive. But anyways, actually, you know what? We're going to go left here. We're going to go down to Fort Hunter, and then we're going to go north up to Dolphin and do that. That'll be fun, I think. Sorry about the sun there. It's at a bad angle. But anyways, so I can't work for the next week. And then when I do start working, it's going to be very basic, very simple, non-physical labor type stuff. So continued prayers would be appreciated, because this thing, really, the idea behind it is, while I was in the hospital for the 4 days, it really started to heal because I was off my feet, obviously. And the hope is that being mostly off my feet, this thing will continue to heal and hopefully progress forward to the point where it closes up and we don't have to worry about that wound, or it only takes another week or so after that to close up fully. So I do seem to heal under the right circumstances. It's just, unfortunately, with my job, I'm on my feet more than I should be, and I'm also on concrete, so that doesn't help. But anyways, so for the channel, right now I have a number of different things that I'm in the process of editing, trying to figure those out. I also am doing some haunted history stuff. I was just in Harper's Tavern, as I said earlier, doing a haunted history there for the actual building itself. It's actually pretty cool stories. Some of them have to do with the Union Canal, or closely related, and you sort of wonder with these ghosts what the whole story actually is. It'd be interesting. And there's probably more to it, but with a lot of these, they're very, very loose. Just, I saw something, but they're still really intriguing and interesting nonetheless. But anyways, so it's just sort of, we're going to be doing quite a bit of haunted stuff. I'm going to be finding more and more of them, doing those for you guys. And as I'm able to get back on my feet, then I'll start doing a little bit more stuff. First, the shorts, because I don't have to be on my feet very long. And then after that, we'll start doing some more long form stuff. and go from there. But we're heading in the right direction. It's just, this was one of those things that was necessary to go in there, get this taken care of, get a ton of IV antibiotics. I also have me on an antibiotic right now that does not make me feel terribly fantastic, but that's part of the game, and it's what's needed to try to keep this thing uninfected and go from there. But I am going to turn this camera around so you guys can get this view. We've done this before. This is Route 443 heading west towards Fort Hunter. It's a really pretty drive, and we are starting to see some of the changes now, so you get to see some of this beautiful fall foliage. And then I think we're going to get on 222, 322, and we're going to go up to Dauphin. I'm going to check them out, and then I'm probably going to do another Country Roads Take Me Home. I forget what the route number is, but it goes right next to, I think, DeHart Dam, which is the water reservoir for Harrisburg. But that's a really long drive, and it is very epic with the trees on either side. It almost looks like one of those cool fantasy pictures where you got the trail going through the middle of the large oaks overhanging the road, and it's just sort of a fairy trail through the woods. But let's turn this around and we can check this out, talk a little bit about history, a little bit about life, a little bit about the meaning of life, maybe even if we're lucky. I wanted to let this one guy by because he was getting antsy, but yet didn't have the nerve to use the passing lane to make a pass, but whatever. I figured make it a little bit more comfortable for myself while I'm filming, because I never enjoy when I'm filming and there's somebody running right up on me. Now we're going into Dauphin County here on 443 West. We'll actually be coming up to Grantville first, which is where the Penn National Race Course is, and then the ever-famous Manada Gap, where Fort Manada was. We visited there several times. We visited the Manada Iron Furnace, and also the Manada, I believe, United Christian Church, which is where those 3 Civil War prisoner of war Confederate soldiers are buried that were killed in that explosion. So we've been out here and done a bunch of filming in this area with the history of the channel. You can check out the Blue Mountain there. It's the multicolored fall mountain right now. This is Country Roads Fall Edition. So you get to see all the pretty reds, yellows, oranges, just the changing of nature as leaves die off and fade, fall away, and we eventually go into winter. And then hopefully winter we'll be able to do a number of winter ones as well. And hopefully, we did a couple last year, but I'd like to do a couple more of those holiday Country Roads Take Me Home, where we go and check out the Christmas lights and those types of things. I got to do a little bit more research this year to find where the good lights are, and then go and see them, because I just sort of went out and did a couple different places, but I'd like to put a little more effort into that. And then at some point in December, probably middle of December, we'll start our Yuletide tales, do those through to the middle of January, and then try to get back on some of these different series, Heroines of Hometown History, the Tales of Hometown History. Start getting some more of these really neat stories that are out there, get them back out there, because some of them, sadly, they just get forgotten. And here we are coming up on the left. That's the Fort Manada, Pennsylvania historic marker. We have stopped there for the short and for the long form of that video here at the Manada Golf Course. This is known coming up here as the Fishing Creek Valley. And I've talked about a number of times the sort of confusion sometimes with Greenpoint, that valley sometimes being referred to as a Fishing Creek Valley too. I never heard of it referred to that, but I've read in several different sources it being referred to as Fishing Creek Valley as well, which is odd because this is not the same valley. The Greenpoint Valley is much higher, and it's odd to have 2 valleys in the same general region be referred to as the same thing. So I have no idea. I think there's confusion there. Maybe somebody's getting Greenpoint Valley confused with this valley. Who knows? But regardless, they're both beautiful this time of year. And just seeing the splendor of nature and these changes in the different seasons is always spectacular to behold. And a pleasure nonetheless. And like I said, I figured while I'm off here, I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to go out for some drives, do a couple of these country roads take me home. And if you go here back left, this will take you back to the Manada Iron Furnace, or what's remained. And it's actually sort of confusing now, because I think they now have made it that you can't go back there, because they do have signs up now, which is a shame, because it's another one of those historical features that really needs to be preserved. And sadly, it's like, nope. Which it's that property owner's right to do that, but it's still just sort of, it's another piece of history that's going to be allowed to fall into ruin and be forgotten. So, and once again, here's another road. You can take this. This is an old sawmill. If you go back that way, that'll also take you back to Manada Iron Furnace and back to that church where the 3 Confederate prisoners of war who were killed in that explosion are buried. It's just that type of history that is just forgotten, because you have these different groups that get it's a Confederate flag, you can't show that. It's like, it's not being shown because of racism. It's being shown as a part of our history. It's being shown as a grave marker that these guys were Confederate troops. It's nothing offensive, nothing meant in that regard. It's a preservation of history. And the fact is, at the end of the day, there's a lot of history out there that's very ugly, but it still needs to be preserved nonetheless. It needs to be told in the way in which we're not glorifying that nonsense, but it's, and that evil. But you also do need to tell it, because, history that is not known is doomed, unfortunately, to be repeated. Because it's not, we as human beings from the 14th century to now are not all that different. We think the same, times change, but the same manipulations, the same evils, the same self-centeredness and hatefulness exists as it did back then. And it's the same, I'm better than this group of people, therefore it's my right to do whatever I want to them, or treat them however I want to. That's existed the same as it did back then. The nature of human beings has not changed. And it never will. We are what we are, and, it's... The difference is making the choice not to live in that manner, and not to judge people or look at people in that manner, and choose to live righteously and justly, and treat all people the same, and to do that in the right way. But that's a personal choice, and it's not always, a lot of people don't choose to live that way. That's why we have these same atrocities and horrors happen, but we need to remember them regardless. It is very, very important to acknowledge the failings of the human race. Oh my, I think up here at some point we do come up to the town that's actually known as Fishing Creek. Now they have Blacksmith Road. I like that. There's probably a blacksmith back there. It's one of those old trades that's still being practiced to this day. Less and less people practice them, but thankfully a number of people have the interest in them and are continuing them as well. I am hoping at some point too, we're going to be coming up to Fort Hunter. We're not actually going to go into Fort Hunter, but that cemetery I am going to go to. I do want to tell the legend of Mummy's Hill, what the 2 different variances of the story for haunted history as well, and go from there. Because according to Pennsylvania law, I have the right to go to a Pennsylvania cemetery. You cannot tell people that you cannot go to a place where people are buried. So that nonsense that's on that gate, that really made me mad the last time I was up here. Now, I started, it's like, there's no way that that's legal. what they're doing and say, oh, you can contact us and then we'll let you know whether you can go up. Well, of course they're not going to contact you. And the thing with that makes me nervous is whoever bought it probably is at some point is hoping that people will just not pay attention, and then, oh, what happened to the cemetery? Oh, we don't know. It got plowed over and there's now, sheesh, that was a nut. So there's a random rogue squirrel, assassin squirrel that has been paid to take me out and failed miserably. And it's on camera. You guys saw it. He threw his last nut and he failed. But anyways, they do stuff like that where they just plow these things over and like figure, you know, we pay money to the right people, nobody will do anything about it. And it makes me angry because I wanted to do a video especially on the history of the little town that's right down there called Hecktown, and it's named after the Dr. Heck, and he's buried up there. So it'd be nice to do, like when I do the series on founders and stuff, I have to be able to go up there and do a video on him and the impact that he made on that town and the region there, because he was one of these, I believe, country doctors sort of around turn of the century, and sort of like the guy that lived in the log cabin that the log cabin was built for, that I lived in from a kid. I don't know the guy's name. That's something I still want to research and try to find out, but he was beloved in that community and was so important because a lot of those people, they couldn't get to a doctor. They were so far away from that, and he would come out in his wagon and visit people and heal the sick and wounded, and was a pretty good guy. So it'd be interesting to find too where he's buried, and just to memorialize someone that was that important. But you know, more often than not, you know, unless other than family oral tradition, a lot of times those people get forgotten by the grand populace, if you will. I think this is Fishing Creek right here, the little village. I believe that's it. Not exactly sure, but anyhow. But it's just such a pretty drive through here on Route 443. I think we're gonna make that big circle go around the Dolphin. I might see if I can find, there's a historic marker for Colonel Timothy Green. We've done that historic marker on the Hanover Resolves. We've actually visited both the Derry Presbyterian and the Old Hanover Presbyterian, which was our first video. Colonel John Rogers, who was the other big proponent of the Hanover Resolves, which was the precursor to Declaration of Independence. It was sort of the first document of its kind saying, you know, we're going to give our future and our hopes to God and our rifles. And, you know, saying basically we want our freedom, and if it comes down to it where we have to fight for it, we're willing to do so. But Colonel Timothy Green was the main guy that was behind it there in Hanover Township. Colonel John Rogers was the other one that was behind it. He's buried at Derry Presbyterian. Most likely he was on some kind of business, died in the summer, and they buried him at the nearest Presbyterian church. He is listed as being buried at the Old Hanover Presbyterian, but he actually is not. But that was the church that his family went to. So it's sort of one of those unique things, a lot like Jacob Albright, where at that time period they didn't have the formaldehyde and all that stuff, so they couldn't embalm you. You just sort of, wherever you died, that's where you got buried. And they tried to do it with your denomination if it was possible, or with a family connection of some sort. Just look at how pretty that is over there. This beautiful valley, Fishing Creek Valley. But that was just sort of one of those things. Is how they did things. It was just by need, necessity, because you didn't have a choice. I might be wrong, and it's actually coming up here where the Fishing Creek Village is, because there's a number of places here where you have very turny bits, and I know at some point I want to go, there's a place where you go left here that takes you down to the historic marker for Patton's Fort. That was another one of those forts like Harper's Fort or Reed's Fort that was not a fort that was put up by the colonial government, like Fort Swatara or Fort Manada, Fort Hunter, Fort Henry. This was one of these that was, usually a local militia officer's home, or a very important person who had, say, a much stronger home. Usually stone homes, but sometimes they were log, but they were usually more substantial. So you could have a number of people from the local area all come to one place and be protected. And that Patton's Fort was one of those. But there's a very unique story with Patton's Fort. The gentleman, I believe, I'm not sure if it's Patton's Fort or, I'm trying to think it was another one. Patton's Fort's in this area, but there's another one as well. And I think that's the one I'm thinking about. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But that one, Barnett's Fort, that's the one I'm thinking of. That's the one that's back one of these roads. Patton's Fort's in this general region as well, and does have a historic marker as well. But Barnett he was a captain, I believe, and his son got taken in the raids during the French and Indian War, and he did ultimately get returned. We talked about Regina Leininger, that she got returned. They had I'm trying to think what the fort's name was that they took them all to, because a lot of them were held out in Ohio territory and then were brought back to that fort. I think Fort Duquesne, I'm not saying it right, I don't believe, but they brought them there first, and anybody that was unclaimed they brought to Carlisle then, and that's where Regina Leininger was claimed, and I believe Barnett's son as well was claimed there as well. But they're gone for 7 or 8 years. So I mean, that's a long period of time, and we talk about Simon Girty as well. He was an individual at Fort Hunter. Now they were out in the western fort, and his father was one that got brutally tortured and killed. But he was taken as a prisoner, treated quite well, and actually adopted the Native American ways, and fought with them in the Revolution, and also I believe the War of 1812. And that's a really cool old log cabin. I always love showing that, because that's an original one. This guy is making a turn just as I was looking to the right. But anyways, that's another really cool location, and that was, I had gone down to Barnett's Fort, to that one, and unfortunately the sign was gone at that time, because that was right in the period when they were removing a lot of the signs and cleaning them up. So it was sort of hit or miss. It was right when I decided, I was like, I'm going to do a short series on this, and it was bad timing because all of them were being taken and cleaned, and Barnett's happened to be gone at that time when I went down there. But Cliff is actually, with the Wonder Woodsman channel, has done a longer form video on that, talking about the story. There are pictures of the fort. I don't think it was torn down till, I think, the teens. It's either the teens or the 30s it was torn down, which is a shame. It was an old log structure that lasted that long, and then somebody finally decided to tear it down. But it's really, a lot of this preservation stuff has only been in the last 50 or 60 years, where people started to realize we really need to preserve our history, because we keep on tearing down these extraordinary structures that are, it's our heritage, it's our history, and keep on tearing all this stuff down and the history that goes with it. And it's unfortunate, but that is was the popular thing to do. Now it's more about preserving and all that kind of stuff, but wasn't always that way. This is a neat old church here. Actually, I have a little bit of a plaque there in front of it. That was the original chapel, I guess. And thankfully, there's an example of preservation, keeping that old church up. And its importance. These churches were community centers. They served more than just the religious and spiritual needs of the community, but they served a lot of other purposes as well. And when those old structures get torn down, it's a shame. There's another place I'd like to visit and hike at some point. It's a Big Tree Preserve. I went up there once and I just was not in the mood to go hiking because my feet hurting. But at some point, if I ever do get to the stage where I can do some kind of hiking, I would like to go up there and see what, you know, what it's all about. But these areas are just really beautiful, and I love driving through them. And this is one of those perfect examples of one of these country roads that take you back to a time when we were younger, less careworn, I guess you could say. This is the type of stuff that reminds me of when I was a kid going on those magical drives at Grandpa's place. I used to love that. Those meant so much to me. Yeah, not only because I've gone to see my grandpa and the circus cookies that were waiting me, but it was just such great memories, you know. And Dad would tell about some of the history of the family in the region and all that good stuff. But always loved when I did the floor care going up into central New York, South Central. When you went into there, like the Finger Lakes, it almost has a slightly dated feel. You almost feel like you're going 20, 30 years back into the past. Just the way everything looks, it feels, the smells, you smell the wood smokes. And for me at least, that's what it did for me, and I loved it. And because it was just such a memory. And then going through like Route 15 is such a beautiful area. I gotta take you guys up through there and then visit the Grand Canyon, Pennsylvania Grand Canyon at some point as well in Wellsboro. Such a beautiful area. And just take you up through there so you can enjoy the sights. I'm sure the colors are fantastic because up there they're changing a lot more than they are here. But I am going to end this video here because we are going to be making our turn on the 322, and I want to pay attention and make sure I'm going in the right direction. So as always, I want to say thanks for coming along, and we'll see you all about town.